The committee meets today to consider the nomination of Admiral Lisa Franchetti to be the next Chief of Naval Operations. Admiral, congratulations on your nomination. I would like to thank your husband, Jim, and your daughter, Isabel, for their many years of support for your service to the nation. Admiral, you bring a wealth of experience and expertise to this position. You have served in leadership roles at every level throughout the Navy, both ashore and at sea, and with postings around the globe. As the current Vice Chief, you have an important perspective on the key challenges for the Navy. Your understanding of the Joint Force and the Navy's ever-expanding role within it will be critical. If confirmed, you would also be the first woman to serve as CNO and on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I am glad we've reached this moment. The Navy faces a dangerous and evolving global security environment. Certainly threats from Russia, Iran, North Korea, and violent extremist groups remain persistent, and the Navy has an important role to play in addressing them. But the clear pacing challenge for our naval forces is China. In the Indo-Pacific and in the seas and ports around the world, the United States Navy will continue to be the first line of deterrence and defense against China's expanding global ambitions. Key to the Navy's success will be a fully developed fleet. In its most recent budget request, the Navy requested 9 new ships, including several submarines, destroyers, frigates, and logistics vessels. At the same time, the Navy proposed retiring a number of ships before the end of their service lives, including several littoral combat ships and dock landing ships. I understand the Navy made the difficult choice to retire some of these ships now to free up more resources in the future, but it seems that this plan would take us in the opposite direction of the Navy's goal for a larger fleet, particularly with regard to the amphibious force structure. Admiral, I'd like to know how you plan to balance these competing demands, as well as your views on the Navy's 30-year shipbuilding plan. Readiness is also a challenge for the service. Our naval forces continue to maintain a high operations tempo across all areas, and demand is overwhelming for attack submarines, cruisers, destroyers, and strike fighters. As a result, deferred ship maintenance, reduced steaming and flying hours, and canceled training and deployments have created serious readiness problems within the Navy. I am concerned that the Navy will not be able to maintain a larger fleet of ships when it is struggling to maintain its current force. Admiral, I would ask again for your views on these challenges. I would note the United States' greatest comparative advantage over China is our global network of allies and partners. The recent agreement between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States to collaborate on nuclear submarine production through the AUKUS partnership is a meaningful step forward. Successful implementation of this plan will require responsible oversight and a stable industrial base. Admiral, I hope you will share also your views on what we have in terms of the capacity to produce now and in the future, and how we can provide the budget and resources to match the demands. Finally, your highest priority must be ensuring the readiness of your sailors to perform their missions. If confirmed, you will be expected to support a culture of leadership, trust, and teamwork throughout the force, with no tolerance for behavior that erodes that culture. Admiral, I would ask that you share again your thoughts on this responsibility. I'm confident that you have the skills and experience to provide the nation's sailors, their families, and Navy civilian employees with the leadership they deserve. Thank you again for your continued willingness to serve, and I look forward to your testimony. And let me now recognize the ranking member, Senator Wicker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Admiral, for being here, and certainly a welcome to your family. It's good that they were able to be with us today. Your nomination comes at a pivotal point for our Navy. The National Defense Strategy rightly identifies China as our pacing threat, as the chair just said. But as China grows its fleet to historic levels, our naval forces continue to shrink and our readiness levels decline. As the chairman just said, when you add the numbers up, it amounts to our fleet going in the wrong direction. A recent memo from the Office of Naval Intelligence suggests that China's shipbuilding capacity is more than 230 times larger than our own. I can hardly believe I'm speaking these words, 230 times larger in shipbuilding capacity. These are not comforting thoughts when we consider the growing number of general and flag officers who warn that China could be capable of invading Taiwan in the next 2 to 4 years. While China builds its maritime strength, American command of the seas is increasingly at risk, and you and I have discussed this in our private meeting. So far, we've not made progress toward the statutory goal of 355 ships that I proposed and that was signed into law 6 years ago. Of course, we now know that we're being told by the experts in our Department of Defense, both civilian and flag officers, that that number is, frankly, more than 355 ships. Additionally, surface ship maintenance delays and cost overruns are so routine that they're factored into our planning timetables. There are even some ships like the USS Vicksburg that have been in repair and modernization for 7 years, as if the Navy never really means to get the Vicksburg back in action. Chairman Reed is exactly right about the competing demands that we face. I particularly am pleased that he mentioned attack submarines and the need for littoral combat ships. The story of our attack submarines is this. A recent press report revealed that over one-third of the Navy's attack submarines are unavailable as they enter repair cycles. That's a third of our attack submarines. We should be producing somewhere between 2.3 and 2.5 attack submarines a year to fulfill our own requirements as we implement AUKUS. Instead, we're down to building 1.2 attack submarines per year as compared to the required 2.3 to 2.5. And the path back toward 2 per year is based on hopes and wishes. The crisis is nothing short of historic, as we are unprepared for a strategic surprise from China. As our Pacific Fleet, we are as unprepared as our fleet was for the Japanese attack on the eve of Pearl Harbor in 1941. We need to act. And let me say this, Admiral, I cherish our Constitution and our longstanding principle that goes back to George Washington. The uniformed military, which the chairman and I were both members of, are answerable to the civilian elected leadership of this country, and that's as it should be. It's one of the shining examples. But also, the Constitution gives the power of the purse to the Congress, and we sit here under the Constitution able to make the decisions about purchasing power. The power of the purse does not rest in the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. And so there's a competing interest there, and I take this opportunity of your hearing today to remind my colleagues also that it is we who have the responsibility to find you the money you need to get you the Navy that will protect us and keep us at peace. Admiral Franchetti, you served as Vice Chief of Naval Operations and as Commander of the Sixth Fleet. I think your experiences make you deeply qualified and deeply familiar with the problems our Navy faces. You also know how damaging delays are. So in addition to the questions that the Chair mentioned, I'd appreciate your thoughts today on a way forward, especially for our submarines, as we move into the AUKUS agreement, as well as your commitment to work with this committee on the vital issue of ship maintenance. Our second challenge the Navy faces is fielding new technical solutions at what former Secretary of Defense Mattis called the speed of relevance. In other words, within a time window, speedily enough that it keeps us ahead of our adversaries, the speed of relevance. Industry and naval research have made major breakthroughs in unmanned warfare, additive manufacturing, and maritime mines in only the past few years. If we have any hope of shoring up our eroding deterrence in the Western Pacific, it will take the rapid integration of these capabilities at scale in the next 2 years or so. So Again, Admiral Franchetti, I'd like to hear from you about how the Navy plans to achieve this integration at the speed of relevance. The Navy has always been our first line of defense, keeping the peace by deterring war and protecting the national interest. This goes as far back as our founding. Admiral Franchetti, I know that you agree with these sentiments, and I'm hopeful they'll keep them in mind as you stand for this important position. I look forward to your testimony and hearing more about your vision for our Navy's future. Your tenure can be a turning point in our national defense, and I hope it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Wicker. Admiral, your remarks, please.
Thank you. Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, distinguished members of this committee, it is my privilege to appear before you today. I am humbled to have been nominated to serve as the 33rd Chief of Naval Operations, and I want to thank each of you for your steadfast support to our sailors, our Navy civilians, and all of our Navy families. That support ensures that we have what we need to be ready every day to stand the watch around the world in support of our great nation. I have long understood that no one can reach this level of leadership on their own, and this morning I just want to take a minute to recognize my family who makes my service possible. My husband, Jim, a former sailor himself and the chief operating officer of our family, and our daughter, Isabel, a senior at Jackson Reed High School, who tells me that despite 7 moves, 2 tours overseas, and 2 deployments, she wouldn't change a thing. I am grateful for their support and proud of their service to our Navy and to our Navy families. They, along with my sister Meg, brother Lawrence, Uncle Lynn, Aunt Sue, Aunt Carmen, and my mother-in-law Mary, who are watching today, and my parents, who are here in spirit, make everything possible. In 1981, as a journalism major at Northwestern, the Navy was the farthest thing from my mind. But a chance meeting with some Naval ROTC students during my freshman orientation week changed the course of my life forever. They told me I could get free textbooks, $100 a month, and possibly a scholarship. I signed up on the spot, and while I joined for free college and a chance to see the world, I stayed for the mission and for the people. Like Isabel, I wouldn't change a thing either. It has been the honor of my lifetime to command at every level of our Navy, from a destroyer squadron, 2 carrier strike groups, to a numbered fleet, and a NATO striking and support force. And if confirmed, I will continue to bring my fleet warfighting lens to bear in everything I do. For the past 247 years, our Navy has stood the watch. We operate forward with the Marine Corps to do whatever it takes to preserve the peace, prepare for war, and win decisively if called. We do this consistent with the priorities set forth in the National Defense Strategy and with an ironclad commitment to integrated deterrence. Right now, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced warship ever built, is deployed with its strike group in the Mediterranean Sea to support NATO and deter Russia. The USS Bataan Amphibious Readiness Group, with the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit embarked, is in the Arabian Gulf as part of the U.S. effort to deter Iran from disrupting the flow of commerce in the region. Just last week, the USS Ralph Johnson sailed through the Taiwan Strait on a routine mission to exercise freedom of navigation and demonstrate our commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. And in the last month, the Navy has supported search and rescue operations following the devastating fires in Maui and has provided assets to help deliver aid to those affected by a volcanic eruption in Papua New Guinea. If confirmed, I will act with urgency and purpose to ensure that we continue to deliver the Navy the nation needs. In doing so, I will focus on the following areas. First, sharpen our warfighting edge. The threat is real, the pace is accelerating, and it is our duty to excel in all domain combat as part of the joint force and alongside our allies and partners. Second, strengthen our Navy team. Our sailors and civilians are our competitive advantage, and we need to continue to provide them the tools, the training, the education, and the support they need to be the best team for our country. And third, fortify the foundation. A Navy that is aligned and resourced to ensure warfighting wholeness is essential to maintaining the peace and winning decisively if called. I am proud to be a United States sailor, and I am inspired every day by the words of our Sailor's Creed, which states, "I represent the fighting spirit of the Navy and those who have gone before me to defend freedom and democracy around the world. I proudly serve my country's Navy combat team with honor, courage, and commitment." Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Admiral. I have a series of standard questions for nominees. You would please respond appropriately. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, Chairman.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, Chairman.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibility makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, Chairman.
Do you agree, when asked before this committee, to give your personal views, even if your views differ from the administration?
Yes, Chairman.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes, Chairman.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes, Chairman.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes, Chairman.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for the testimony or briefings?
Yes, Chairman.
Well, thank you very much, Admiral, and your outstanding service, I think, predicts an outstanding tenure as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Excuse me, as the CNO. I'm a little confused. Your biography reveals that you've served on 3 destroyers, including having commanded the USS Ross. You also served under a destroyer, tender, and an oiler earlier in your career. Subsequently, you were a destroyer squadron commander, a carrier strike group commander, the commander of the United States Sixth Fleet. You have had a great deal of time at sea, and how do you believe this sea duty has prepared you for your responsibilities as CNO?
Chairman, as I said, it really has been the honor of my lifetime to have this opportunity to command and lead. Through all of those commands, I've had the opportunity to build great warfighting combat teams. I've seen firsthand our sailors in action, and I've had the opportunity to see the resources that they need to be able to do their job. I've had the chance to serve in every fleet in our Navy, operating in the Pacific, operating all around South America, operating in the Atlantic, up in the high north, in the Mediterranean, and in the Middle East. And between my operational experience and my time working in force development, design, and strategy and policy, I think this really fills out my capability and my experience to be able to serve as the CNO if confirmed.
So you understand that non-commissioned officers really have great advice, and you always listen.
I do. In fact, in my first division, which was 70 people down in engineering, I had 2 amazing chief petty officers, Chief Satriano and Chief Salvatore, who taught me everything I needed to know about my equipment and my sailors, and I thank them to this day.
Thank you, Admiral. We've both alluded to, Senator Wick and I, the problems with ship maintenance, trying to keep ships at sea when too many are really waiting for overhauls or repairs. I know the Navy is pursuing a modernization of the public shipyards, which has resulted in some productivity improvements, but how will the Navy be able to maintain a larger fleet in the future when you can't keep up with maintaining fewer than 300 ships today?
Chairman, maintenance has been a big focus of mine as the Vice Chief of Naval Operations. And my goal, if confirmed, is to make sure that we get as many players on the field all the time. And we cannot do that if we have ships that are delayed getting into maintenance or getting out of maintenance. If confirmed, I will continue to focus on really 3 areas. The first is workforce development. This really is a similar challenge that our private industry faces in making sure that we bring in the talent that we need and we retain it to do the work they need to do on our ships and our submarines. The second really is to work on using data analytics to understand the flow of work through the shipyard and how we can expedite that and be most effective in getting the maintenance done. And the third is really to make sure they have the parts and supplies they need ahead of time to be able to do that.
Oh, thank you. I think also there's an issue, and again, Senator Wicker sort of made the case very eloquently, that is a responsibility primarily of Congress, but that is to ensure that you have the capacity to do this. Do you think there has to be increased capacity?
Chairman, we have continued to make progress in decreasing our days of maintenance delay and getting the ships in and out. I'm not satisfied with that progress. And I think with the workforce development, being able to put additional shifts online, I'd like to work through that as we continue to see what else we would need for additional capacity.
Thank you. One of the issues that is significant and growing more significant each day is congested logistics, especially in a fight in the Pacific. Quickly, in the remaining time, can you give me a sense of your approach to this issue of congested logistics?
Well, Senator, I think there's a lot of historical examples that, amateurs talk tactics and professionals talk logistics. And logistics has been a key focus area of mine, especially during my time as a fleet commander, where we conducted a big war game, and we realized that we really needed to conduct an independent war game to get after those contested logistics challenges. So if confirmed, I will continue to focus on better understanding the needs of our fleet to be resupplied, making sure that they can be as resilient as possible to decrease the need for contested logistics to flow, but also making sure that we have the ships and all the different capacities we need to be able to get our warfighters what they need when they need it.
And the Navy plays a critical role, particularly in the Pacific, because it's not just self-sustainment of the Navy. You're the critical link to our Air Force facilities, Army and Marine Corps facilities. So again, I urge you to focus, and I know you will. With that, let me recognize the ranking member for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Admiral, let me just jump right into a question about block buys for amphibious ships. The Navy has used block buys or multi-year procurement authorities on programs like destroyers, carriers, and nuclear submarines, and yet it has not used these authorities for amphibious ships. Despite congressional support, strategically procuring multiple ships has the demonstrated effects of lowering costs and providing stability to the industrial base, which is very, very essential to our shipbuilding and our infrastructure. If confirmed, would you advocate for a block buy of amphibious ships?
Senator, our amphibious ships are a critical part of our Navy, and I'm a big supporter of our Navy Marine Corps team and continuing to work with General Smith to make sure that we are meeting all the requirements of the Marine Corps. As we look to build our amphibious ships, again, we're really looking for the requirements that we need to make sure that we get the best ship at the best cost.
Ma'am, are you going to answer the question, though? Are you still going to take that under consideration? Are you not prepared to commit to this committee that you would advocate for block buys in that type of ship?
For all of our ships, I like to look at getting the best price for our ships, so I will take for consideration the best way we can use the taxpayer dollars to get the ships we need at the best price.
That's all you're willing to say. Let me just urge you. There's a reason why we have specific congressional support for this, and so I would hope that we can continue to have this conversation, and also with regard to the question that the chairman asked concerning capacity. I realize you have not taken office yet, and you'll be looking at things. But do you have an opinion, though, as to whether the capacity can be met by what you seem to indicate would be a manpower shift rather than increased industrial spaces and repair spaces, maintenance spaces?
You know, as I've had a chance to look at it, I really think that we've not fully maximized the throughput capacity of the shipyards that we have right now, and I'd really like to see them being able to put a second or third shift on before we continue to develop additional capacity that would potentially have the same manpower challenges.
Okay. Well, we'll continue to work with you on that and try to flesh that out. Now, Admiral Franchetti, it is, I hope, well known that I am supportive of the AUKUS agreement, but I do believe that we should bolster our submarine industrial base to meet the AUKUS requirements. Otherwise, we're going the wrong direction in terms of ships. Now, the Navy, do you agree with what I said in my opening statement, that a new construction cadence for attack submarines must reach between 2.3 and 2.5 ships per year in order to offset the transfers to Australia? You do agree with that, do you not?
As my understanding is we need to reach 2.2 to be able to meet those requirements, as well as our commitment to continue to produce our Columbia-class submarine.
Okay, and the Navy's goal is for 66 attack submarines with a floor of no less than 48. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the Navy already plans to go below the floor of 48, which is, again, troubling, I think, to members of this committee. AUKUS will make that shortfall even more so, because we would be delivering some 3 submarines to our allies, the Australians. Can you explain, or do you believe that we should plan to meet the minimum requirement? And how can we do so under the facts that I've just given you?
AUKUS is a strategic opportunity for us to knit together the strong partnership we already have with Australia and the UK. And I think this will, again, change the adversary's decision calculus. And I'm very excited about the opportunity for our Australians to have this capability. I think, if confirmed, I will continue to work with industry, with the Congress, with the administration to make sure that we continue to have oversight of the AUKUS as it goes down the optimal pathway. And I believe that we will be able to meet and achieve all of those requirements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. And Senator Hirono, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, Admiral, on your nomination. You bring extensive and impressive experience to the post. I also want to thank your family for their obvious support of your 38 years of commitment to our country and the mission. As part of my responsibility as a member of this committee, I ask the following 2 initial questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No.
Admiral, one of the major issues that has confronted Hawaii is the spills at Red Hill, resulting in a major decision to close this massive World War II facility. I have consistently called for accountability for the spills that affected an entire community, close to 100,000 people, and caused over $2 billion in damages, a total that does not even include the cost for closing the facility and long-term environmental cleanup. So when I focus on the accountability for these spills, there are still many questions that remain. What is the Navy going to do to hold people accountable for the mishaps and years of neglect that led to these catastrophic situation at Red Hill?
Senator Hirono, the Navy is committed to the safe and effective defueling of Red Hill in support of the Joint Task Force led by INDOPACOM, and ensuring an effective stand-up of the Navy Red Hill Task Force that will complete the work to completely shut down the facility. Regarding accountability, I think accountability is an incredibly important part of oversight. The Secretary of the Navy is nearing completion of his review, and will brief the Congress when he is completed.
Oh, I'm glad that you said that maintenance is a top priority for you, because as the chair of the subcommittee on readiness, that I really focused on infrastructure maintenance, because that is what led to, as far as I can see, the kind of disasters at Red Hill. And there are other situations that have occurred relating to the Navy and the military's presence in Hawaii. Oh, you mentioned that regarding maintenance, that in support of surface ship maintenance, which is really an area of concern for a number of us, including the chair and the ranking member. Currently, only 4 of 18 berths for surface ships at Pearl Harbor, for example, support maintenance, and even those 4 require waivers for fire protection. You mentioned that, if I heard you correctly, that you would focus on 3 aspects of what we need to do to shore up our maintenance capacity. Workforce development, which is a huge challenge in itself. But you also mentioned using data analytics. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by using data analytics to create a better or more efficient environment for ship maintenance?
Yes, I think, what we see in some of our shipyards, they need to do some process mapping to get a better understanding of if a worker shows up in the morning, how do they get their work assignment, where do they go to get their tools, where do they go to get their parts. So having an efficient mapping will help us better understand how to design the shipyard. As you know, through our SIOP program, we're focused on recapitalizing our dry docks, but also recapitalizing and better laying out those facilities to make our work more efficient. And this data analytics effort will enable us to do that.
So that sounds like a very logical thing to do, and I'm surprised that we're not doing it yet. Is that the situation, that they're not using those kinds of tools in order to really determine how to be a lot more efficient in ship maintenance? That is currently not being utilized?
We are using that now.
So what, can we do it better? Is that what you're saying?
We need to adopt that across the entire enterprise of our public shipyards. And again, this will inform our area development plans as we lay out the future designs for each one of our public shipyards.
I think SIOP was a really important thing to focus on, the infrastructure and what we're doing in our public shipyards, of which we have 4. Do you think that a program like SIOP for all infrastructure at shipyards would be a good thing?
Senator Hirsch, one of the things I learned as the Sixth Fleet Commander is to view our bases and places as aircraft carriers that don't get underway because they project power, they generate our force, and we need to invest in them. And if confirmed, I'm committed to continuing our work on our 15-year infrastructure investment plan to be able to look at our facilities in that same way, because we need them to project power and continue to build relationships with the communities in which they reside.
Just one more thing. I'm glad that you mentioned how important our partners are to project power in the Indo-PACOM area. And so AUKUS is really important, and the campaigns that we're doing, particularly with Japan and South Korea, I think are really critical for the Indo-PACOM AOR. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rona. Senator Fisher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Admiral, for providing your insight in our meeting last week. I kind of wanted to follow up on that discussion. As we discussed, the Columbia program is on a tight timeline to deliver the first submarine to the Navy in 2027. What actions is the Navy taking to ensure that we can meet this schedule, given the residual workforce and the supply chain challenges that we discussed?
Senator Fisher, again, it was nice to meet you the other day. And, the Columbia program has been the Navy's #1 priority. And if confirmed, that will remain my #1 priority. It's essential that we recapitalize that incredible deterrent capability that we have. This Columbia started out on an accelerated schedule. We are no longer on the accelerated schedule, but we are meeting the contracted delivery schedule for Columbia. We are continuing to work closely with industry, again, against all those challenges that I described earlier, and continuing to provide the right level of oversight so we understand where we are. It is an all-hands-on-deck effort to ensure that we stay on time. Separately, we have developed a mitigation strategy to extend some of our Ohio-class submarines in the event that Columbia does not deliver on time, but I am fully committed, if confirmed, to ensuring Columbia delivers on time.
How important do you think it is that Congress include the requested anomaly in the upcoming stopgap spending bill to allow the Navy to begin construction on the second Columbia-class submarine?
Well, it's absolutely critical. We have 9 ships in the budget request, and we won't be able to start on 4 of them under a CR. So Columbia is one of them, and we would essentially need an anomaly to be able to not get behind on our commitment to deliver on this strategic deterrent for our nation.
Okay. A number of the technologies are available now, and there's a lot under development, I think, that are going to enhance an operation gap that we see in, I think, a number of platforms, a number of programs in trying to address the threats that we face from our adversaries. Can you explain to this committee what role you assess unmanned platforms to play in a future Navy?
Well, thank you, Senator. I think it will really take a mix of all our platforms. It's a big ecosystem of warfighting between our conventional platforms. Definitely see a future for unmanned platforms under, on, and above the sea in working in concert with the joint force. We've had an unmanned task force in the Navy for the last 2 years. If confirmed, I want to continue that work or evolve it into a disruptive capabilities office that looks beyond just unmanned, but at other capabilities that we can leverage from the defense innovation base to get after some of these challenges that we have.
Do you think establishing that office is going to help the Navy be able to reach a balance in the unmanned and the manned program?
I think through our analysis wargaming, we're going to understand what that balance looks like. And I think this office will speed to the fleet the things that it sees it needs to fill gaps right now, leveraging work in the replicator program and using funds that have already been allocated for this. I think we're going to be able to get after that. We're demonstrating it now in Task Force 59 in the Middle East with many of our allies and partners there. And we've also scaled that to 4th Fleet, using them to do maritime domain awareness and other missions that will be really important going forward.
For the first time in history, the United States will face 2 adversaries who are peer nuclear powers, and this fundamentally changes nuclear deterrence dynamics, particularly with respect to the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons. So if Russia or China believe that they can gain advantage over the United States and our allies from the threat of limited nuclear strikes, because they perceive the president as lacking a viable response option, then deterrence could fail. And that plays right into the escalate to de-escalate strategy that they have. We've heard from a number of leaders within the military, General Milley, Admiral Grady, the STRATCOM commanders, and also former Democrat and Republican officials about that capability gap. And that's why this committee and the House committee in the NDAAs that we have passed here in Congress both have the Sea Launch Cruise Missile as a program of record in the NDAAs, waiting for the president's signature now to make that law. Do you agree with that assessment, that this president or any president deserves to have multiple options to deal with national security situations?
Yeah, I agree with the view of other senior leaders that this is tailored options that the president should have, a submarine launched cruise missile.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator King, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, as you know, the cornerstone of our defense policy for at least 70 years has been deterrence. And deterrence only works if the deterrent is credible. I am concerned, and this is to put a fine point on some of the comments that have already been made, that the credibility of our deterrent is waning, particularly in light of the massive capacity increase in China and clearly the aggressive nature of Russia at this point. Deterrence doesn't work. Weakness is an invitation to war. And I believe, in spite of the efforts to improve productivity and output of our maintenance bases as well as our construction facilities, we need more capacity. 30% of the naval ships, which I think you mentioned, that are not available at any given moment is absolutely unacceptable. No business in the private sector would have 30% of their capital assets idle. And clearly, workforce is a challenge and one of the barriers, but I would hope that you would consider a serious rethinking of capacity in terms of maintaining the size of the Navy that we need and the availability of the Navy that we need. I think it's time for a hair-on-fire task force on this issue. We can improve productivity at those facilities, but looking at the numbers, it just doesn't seem like that will be enough. Your thoughts?
Well, Senator King, thank you again for your time the other day. I enjoyed talking with you. You know, I agree that deterrence is our #1 priority. And we need to be able to deter our adversaries by having a combat credible force. Our Navy is the most formidable force in the world, and if confirmed, I will continue to make sure it stays that way. As I look at our shipbuilding industry and my objective of having more players on the field, I have to step back and think that it's not only about the number of ships we have, but it's also about the capability of those ships. It's really a mix of that, along with ensuring that they have the right skills, the people with the right skills, the right manning, the right munitions, and all of the support they need to be able to do their job. And if confirmed, I will continue to look at that and ensure that we do deliver the Navy that the nation needs going forward to deter our adversaries and fight and win our nation's wars.
And I believe that one of the challenges in increasing capacity, whether it's at existing yards, a new yard, or something in between, is workforce. And the Navy has to be thinking about, as I work with people at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard or at Bath Iron Works, the quality of life at those yards. Mundane things like parking. We need to attract workers, and they need to be able to have a quality of life, whether it's something that you think of as peripheral. Parking, childcare, those kinds of things are important in order to maintain and encourage the workforce that we need. These people are working hard. I've toured both of those yards so many times. I think if I tour BIW once more, I'm going to learn how to weld. But these people work hard, they work efficiently, but we've got to keep them coming. All of our industrial base needs workforce today, so I hope the Navy will think about that as you're thinking more broadly than simply what's the contract going to look like.
Yes, as Vice Chief, I was responsible for leading a task force to get after the quality of service, starting first in our shipyards and then scaling that out to the rest of the fleet, because we need to be a world-class employer of choice. We're in a war for talent every day, and we need to be able to attract and retain sailors. I would expand that we really do need a national call to service for people to support our defense industry, whether it's in small business, whether it's in big shipyards, or whether it's serving the Navy. It's all service to your nation, and we need that capacity as a nation to be able to deter our adversaries.
I agree with that. And final question, the changed nature of warfare. I would urge and encourage war games, red teaming, to think about the challenge of electronic warfare. We have these very sophisticated aircraft, ships, submarines, all based on very sophisticated electronics. we need to think about what happens when the GPS goes off. What happens when our ships are blind or are vulnerable? The other question that we need to focus upon is defense against hypersonics. We've assumed the invulnerability of our fleet, of our aircraft carriers. They're not. So I'll take for the record, I'd like your thoughts on A, defense against hypersonics, and B, our preparations for electronic warfare. Thank you, Admiral. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Rounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Franchetti, first of all, I want to offer my congratulations on your nomination as well. And I also want to say thank you to your family. When you are deployed, they're away as well. I mean, they're separated. And that sacrifice is something that we sometimes don't recognize for the family. So to your husband and to your daughter, thank you for your sacrifice as she moves forward in service to our country. Admiral Franchetti, you and I talked a little bit about this, so this is not going to be a surprise for you, but I understand that the DoD NTIA study on the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz portion of the spectrum has been completed. It is being reviewed at senior levels in the department and will be published later this month. I bring this up to encourage you. It is imperative that you be forthright and clear on the impact auctioning off the lower 3 gigahertz band of the spectrum would have on Navy capabilities that you operate in that particular one, the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz. And the cost, the substantial cost to develop new systems if those capabilities have to migrate someplace else, if they can even do so. Every single senior DoD official I have questioned this year has expressed concerns about sharing this portion of the spectrum with commercial interests. In April of this year, Admiral Gilday pointed out that it would impact 188 ships, and Secretary Del Toro testified that relocating these systems would cost the Navy upwards of $250 billion and perhaps decades in the making. Can you confirm that cost estimate, and how long would it take to relocate these systems? And if the study confirms the concerns expressed by DoD thus far, what would be your advice to the President and to Congress?
Well, Senator Rounds, thank you very much for your leadership on this critical issue. I am very concerned about this discussion of selling off this particular section of the spectrum. All of our Aegis destroyers and many of our weapon systems operate in this spectrum. Giving away the spectrum would affect us dramatically. We wouldn't be able to test, train, and we would take serious risk to Homeland Defense if we were not able to operate these systems in the areas in which we need to operate them. I would get back to you on take for the record the cost to validate that, but my real concern is whether or not we could even make the changes that we would need to make ever. And I will also look at how long it would take to make those changes. But again, I'm not confident that we would be able to actually make the changes we would need to make to be able to use these systems to defend our nation and train our people.
Would China, do you believe that China would be happy if we were directed, or politically directed to remove our capabilities in this particular part of the spectrum? How would they view that?
I think China will take advantage of any advantage that they see or any opportunity that they see to be able to defeat us and defeat our capabilities. And I know they're watching.
Thank you. Let me talk a little bit about what I think Senator King hit on something that is so important, and that, as well as, you know, you've heard it almost right down the line here with regard to our capability to build. I want to take it one step farther and talk about our ability to actually maintain the equipment we've got. Most naval admirals that have been before us cringe because they understand that as soon as I say USS Boise, there's really no excuse for the fact that we have an attack submarine, a nuclear attack submarine that has now been basically in dry dock or been unable to dive for more years than it actually took to build it in the first place. I think, are you familiar with the plight of the USS Boise?
Yes, I am, and it is unacceptable.
It's been 8 years now. And the reason why I bring it up is because I think it points to the fact that we do have to have a very serious discussion about our capabilities to maintain the fleet we've got, let alone expand the fleet. And there isn't anybody up here, I think, that doesn't question the need and doesn't agree with the need to actually expand the Navy based upon the near-peer competition that we've got in the Pacific region. My question for you, isn't it about time that probably we have a really long-term plan for not just building new, but for maintaining? And isn't it perhaps time that we have metrics established with that we hold ourselves accountable for, and we bring in not just Congress into this discussion, but the administration in terms of how we lay this out going forward? And would you commit to coming back and laying out for us a plan with metrics so that we are accountable to one another for getting it done?
Yes, Senator Rounds, we have a 15-year maintenance plan for all of our submarines, which is designed to get after that, and it does use data analytics. More recently, we have put in charge of our operational submarine effectiveness and delivery through the type commander, who is the operational commander for submarines, to really put an operational lens and drive performance in our maintenance availabilities to get the ships out on time. And I'm committed to continuing, if confirmed,
You'll share
to
the
work
metrics.
on that.
You'll share the metrics with us.
Yes, if confirmed, I will. As Vice Chief, I will as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Senator Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Admiral Franchetti, my congratulations to you. I believe it's the case, although correct me if I'm wrong about this, that once you and the other service chief nominees are confirmed, all of the service chiefs will have served together as vice chief and chief. And that's not happened for a very long time. Am I right about that?
Yes, that's correct.
And so that's an interesting one for my colleagues, the fact that the four have already forged these working relationships. It doesn't have to start anew. And I think that will help us as we grapple with jointness and integrated defense and deterrence. I want to talk about another aspect of integrated defense and deterrence, and that's our allies using AUKUS as the example. I am very pro the AUKUS announcement, which is now about 2 years old. I'm pro the announcement because the Aussies and the UK are great partners and have demonstrated that for decades with us. But also, you had an interesting phrase. You said it complicates the decision-making of adversaries when we do alliances like this. And I would put AUKUS together with the advances in the Quad. I would put AUKUS together with the Camp David summit that the president just had with the presidents of Korea and Japan, South Korea and Japan. That will, civilian leadership being closer enables the mill-to-mill relationship to be stronger. And so I think doing these kinds of alliances are really strong. I want to dig into AUKUS because Senator Wicker asked important questions, and they're questions that others are asking. We have a Virginia-class production right now that's about 1.2 a year. We need to get to, I think you testified, 2.2 a year to meet our own Virginia-class requirements and have the ability in the 2030s to transfer 3 to 5 Virginia-class subs to the Aussies. And then as that happens and they operate them and train them, then they will be able to develop with our assistance their own nuclear submarine production capacity. Okay, so how do we get from 1.2 to 2.2? Seems to me that there's 3 elements. The first is this body has invested $2.3 billion in the submarine industrial base from 2018 to 2023. And these are investments that are long-term, that as they mature, they will help us move our production capacity forward to some degree. That's one element. The second element is the Aussies have said that they will invest $3 billion in the U.S. submarine industrial base. That will help us move forward in terms of closing the gap between 1.2 and 2.2. But you'd agree with me, wouldn't you, that there's no way they will make that investment absent a guarantee that there's a deliverable of Virginia-class subs in the 2030s, correct?
Yes, and as we continue to work with our Australian partners and the British partners, coming to agreements and with each nation committing that this is the way forward will be critically important because each nation needs to have the support of the people as well as their military.
Right, and it would be kind of hard to imagine a discussion in the Aussie Parliament of, somebody coming and saying, let's invest $3 billion in the U.S. submarine industrial base. Okay, are we getting a guarantee out of it? Well, unless they're going to get a guarantee, they're not going to make that investment. So we need to give them a guaranteed deliverable if they're going to make that $3 billion investment. But in addition to our $2.3 billion investment, that $3 billion investment is another critical component in terms of getting us from 1.2 to 2.2 a year. Now, my thought is there's probably a third element, and that is there an additional delta on our shoulders that we need to invest 2.3 plus 3? Okay, we can do that. Is there an additional delta that we need to invest, and over what period of time, to help us get from the 1.2 to the 2.2 a year? And I see the questions of Senator Wicker, and Senator Ricketts was asking some of these questions in a Foreign Relations Committee meeting the other day. I think what they're asking is for the Pentagon and the White House to kind of put down on that third criteria. Okay, what's the additional delta that we might need to invest going forward? We've done 2.3. We could get 3 if we do the guaranteed of deliverables to the Aussies, but there's probably some additional delta. And it doesn't have to be like in this year's supplemental. We're talking about delivery of subs in the 2030s. But I do think my colleagues would like to see what that sort of third element is. What additional investment would be needed over what period of time? How would that investment be programmed? And so I would, should you be confirmed, but this is also a message to just the Pentagon and the White House, I hope they will present to this committee especially, okay, what is the additional investment that the U.S. is going to need to make to get us from the 1.2 to the 2.2? I think we can do it. And I think if we do it, it would be fantastic for our integrated defense capacity. I would just hope that we might be able to have that discussion to answer some of the legit questions that I think folks are raising. I think this offers an amazing opportunity for the United States in the Indo-Pacific, and I want to make sure that we take full advantage of that opportunity. Thank you, Admiral Franchetti.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Ernst, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Admiral, for appearing in front of the committee today, and congratulations on your nomination. And thank you as well to Jim and Isabel. Thank you so much for your wonderful support. We do appreciate that. So a number of members have brought up, of course, the defense industrial base and the lack of capacity or ships that we have. Senator Rounds brought up the USS Boise. Well, when we sat down in my office, I had a different ship that I brought up. It was the USS Sioux City. And I would like to discuss that today. When we spoke, you talked about the need to drive the Navy towards becoming a more lethal force, and I absolutely agree with that. The current threats to our national security challenge us to reevaluate the investments that we're making in our future fleet. And I'm very sensitive as well to the cost to our Navy, which is why we must ensure that the Navy buys the weapon systems and equipment that will meet the operational threats of tomorrow. The USS Sioux City, for those that are watching, for their information, is a littoral combat ship. It was decommissioned last month after only being commissioned for 5 years because it was not operationally effective in the future threat environment. And Congress deserves its fair share of the blame for appropriating funds for constructing unnecessary ships. But I believe that Navy leadership should have spoken up very aggressively in opposition to the LCS. And so in light of this situation, Admiral, do I have your commitment to building only the most lethal Navy possible?
Yes, you do.
And Admiral, do I also have your commitment to ardently speak up against actions that do not support the most lethal Navy?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that and appreciate the discussion we had the other day. I think it's incredibly important that those of us that sit here on this committee understand that while there may be parochial interests in our home states to moving ahead and building certain types of ships, when it's not in the Navy's best interest, we should stop it. Okay, so we should not be appropriating money to programs that aren't necessary for our Navy nor not wanted by our Navy. So I appreciate the commitment there. As we're talking about, again, about building and our defense industrial base, on your disruptive capabilities, your office, disruptive means upsetting the status quo. So with that, the Navy, because of how long it takes to build ships, is not traditionally disruptive. So how do you plan to work with the Defense Innovation Unit, DIU, to integrate cutting-edge technology from our private sector so that we can move that into our large Navy programs?
Well, thank you, Senator Ernst, and it was a pleasure talking with you the other day.
Thank you.
I'm very focused on, getting this right mix of ships between our large conventional platforms, but integrating these defensive disruptive capabilities into the force. And we've really been using our unmanned task force to test the waters on that for the last 2 years. And as you've seen the results out in Fifth Fleet, where we've been able to leverage the best in commercial industry to be able to bring that together with our allies and partners to provide essentially great maritime domain awareness over large bodies of water and knitting that together to have a common picture through a mesh network. So these are the kind of capabilities that we're looking at. They've done a great job in Fifth Fleet. We've also scaled that now down into Fourth Fleet, which operates around South America, just demonstrating that in an exercise called UNITAS, and again, very effectively. And of course, we're looking to scale this into Seventh Fleet. We're doing experimentation with some of these capabilities. And if confirmed, I'm committed to really putting down the gas on the pedal to accelerate these capabilities, leveraging work with DIUX, leveraging the replicator initiative and all the funding that we can get to be able to push these through into our fleet warfighting hands.
I appreciate that. I think we can work smarter, not necessarily harder, but definitely smarter to meet our end goals. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Warren, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Franchetti, congratulations on your nomination. Jim, Isabel, good to have you here today. So for 9 months, the senator from Alabama has personally blocked the Senate from approving promotions for more than 300 military leaders. We are missing Navy commanders in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. The Secretary of the Navy has said the impact of these holds is, quote, playing Russian roulette with the very lives of our service members. And now, with Admiral Gilday's retirement, the Navy has no confirmed Chief of Naval Operations. But the price our nation will pay for the reckless behavior of Senator Tuberville will reach far into the future. Admiral Franchetti, the Navy, like most of the services, is always competing for the best leaders of tomorrow. So how important is a pipeline like the Naval Academy for recruiting those leaders of tomorrow?
Senator Warren, it was a pleasure to meet you the other day. As we look right now, as our Navy is facing challenges all around the globe, threats from our adversaries, we want to have the right people with the right level of experience in those positions. And as we continue to not have the confirmed people that we've nominated with that experience, we're going to continue to see an erosion of readiness. As far as the Naval Academy goes, it is an amazing place. I had a chance to serve there as a battalion officer, and they bring together the best and brightest talent from all across America that are willing to serve our nation, and they really come out and they do a great job. So whether they serve for their original commitment or they serve for 30 years, I'm very proud of all of our midshipmen at the Naval Academy, as well as our midshipmen across our other commissioning sources in OCS.
And I take it you're saying this is a part of the leadership pipeline for the Navy.
It is.
So one of the people held up by Senator Tuberville is Rear Admiral Davids, who would be the first female superintendent of the Naval Academy. Seeing someone like her at the helm will inspire other people who might not otherwise pursue a career in the Navy. Senator Tuberville likes to talk about how we're in a recruiting crisis, But for the first time in 60 years, the Naval Academy started the school year without a confirmed superintendent. And every young person at the Naval Academy, every young person who is thinking right now about applying to the Academy, and every young person anywhere in the Navy must confront head-on the fact that Senator Tuberville has turned both the Navy and the Naval Academy into one more political football. The Senator's actions are damaging our military's recruiting, and we will be paying a price for that for decades to come. So let me ask you about another impact from these holds. Let me ask about families. Admiral Franchetti, have you heard anything about the impact of these holds on Navy families?
Yes, I think our Navy families are dealing with a lot of uncertainty. We ask a lot of our families to move, uproot, find new schools, find new jobs for spouses, and I have heard a lot of concerns from our families that they are having difficulty navigating that space right now.
All right. And one last question, and this one is about the promotion system. The 300-plus holds on the top ranks has an impact on everyone who is one level down, 2 levels down, who can't move into a spot that has been vacated. Admiral Franchetti, the senator from Alabama, is treating these holds as a minor inconvenience. But the servicers are telling me that even after the holds are lifted, the promotion system will be tangled up for months or years to come. So what is your best estimate of how long it will take the Navy's promotion system to recover?
Well, Senator, I think just at the 3-star level, it would take about 3 to 4 months to move all of the people around, but it will take years to recover from the promotion, if confirmed, for the promotion delays that we would see forward.
So years to come, our military experts project China wants to be able to take Taiwan by 2027, and we'll still be trying to repair the damage inflicted by these holds. The Republicans' failure to end this blockade makes it clear they don't care about our leaders, they don't care about the families who have served their country honorably for decades. It is hard to imagine a bigger propaganda win for our enemies. We need this hold to stop, and we need it to stop now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Warren. Let me announce the benefit of our colleagues that the 10:30 vote has begun, and let me recognize Senator Scott, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First off, congratulations on your nomination. I wish you the best of luck, and it's nice to see a family that is so supportive. So, this is a big job. And you've got a great background to be able to do this. So let me just ask you some questions. As you know, Florida's home to probably the best Navy ships and sailors and all that stuff. But talk to me about Philippines and the importance of the Philippines. I was just did a P8. I just did a tour on a P8 over there. Actually, she was the captain was a young lady. Her plane was from Jacksonville, and so she's from Ocala. But anyway, tell the American public the importance of the Philippines and why we should be engaged. We're not just engaged with the Navy there, we're engaged with their Coast Guard too.
Senator Scott, thank you very much for your support to all of our Navy team throughout Florida. I think the allies and partners are really one of our key strategic advantages for the U.S. We see our potential adversaries do not have those relationships. And again, I think it is a strategic strength. For the Philippines in particular, I'm very excited by the opportunities that we have with the Philippines now. They're a critical partner. They're in a critical location. And we look forward to continuing to do exercises and build our relationship with both the Navy and the Coast Guard there, because there's incredible opportunities for them.
Does it concern you that China is trying to infringe on the Philippines' sovereignty with the different shoals?
It concerns me that China is really trying to infringe on many people's sovereignty throughout the South China Sea, including the Philippines.
So the Marine Corps is the only service that met their recruitment numbers last year. This year, the Navy dropped the recruitment quality standards to the minimum level legal level, and the Navy will allow some recruits to enlist who score as low as 10 on a 100-point scale on the Armed Forces Qualification Test. That didn't seem to make a lot of sense. Can you talk about, that and how you're going to deal with it?
Yes, Senator, we are in a war for talent, but I would like to make the point that the Navy has not lowered any of our standards. We are using every available lever to us that's authorized to be able to expand the pool of people that we're bringing in. So we've done a few things. We've raised the admission age to 42. And to your specific point, we have brought in more Cat 4, up to 20% now, Category 4 recruits. But I think when you think about the Navy, we have a wide range of skill sets where we need people with this level of skill, and we need electronics technicians with this level of skill. What bringing in the Cat 4s has done for us is to allow us to fill the first level. Everyone is eligible for one job, at least. And through our future sailor prep course, through the physical fitness one, we took a page from the Army on that. That's going well. And we'll also continue to add to the academic rigor of the folks coming in so they can advance to the higher level of skills. So we haven't lowered our standards in any way.
And do you think you're going to be able to meet your recruitment numbers going forward?
So we started out the year thinking we'd be about 13,000 short. We're going to be about 7,000 short. We're doing better month by month than we were last year. And if confirmed, I will continue to make sure that we get out and talk to people all around the world so we can bring in the best talent for our Navy.
Okay, thank you. You talked a little bit about when Senator Ernst was about the littoral ships, and I guess they're decommissioning some is with a life just like 5 years. Seems sort of crazy. Can you talk about the importance of these ships and how they're going to fit into the Navy in the future?
The littoral combat ship is still a very important ship to our Navy. We have a validated need for them in the surface warfare mission, but most importantly in the mine countermeasures mission, and we will be able to continue to use them for these missions.
Do you anticipate, asking Congress to retire more of them?
I would have to take that for the record after I have an opportunity to do an analysis, and I will do that.
Thanks. Congratulations again on your nomination. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Tocqueville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Congratulations. Good visit with you the other day. As we discussed, I'm continuously talking to our Joint Chiefs and our leadership about politics. We talk about politics, and I would hope that when you take over your new role, and I'm excited for you, that keep politics out as much as, I know you'll have to deal with it some, but out of the military as much as we possibly can. Leave it to us politicians, I guess. I want to ask you about, we've got a vice admiral that soon will be talking about confirming, and I just want to give you one example of what I'm talking about here. I coached football for a long time. I coached teams, put them together, and I had football players. I didn't have different races or wealth or religions, and I would never try to divide that group and put them in certain categories to where other groups said, well, what are we doing? Why are we separating this? Because our military is a team. I mean, we've got to win. There's no second place in war. There's the first place. Well, we got one rear admiral that recently had a party on a ship for the lesbian, gay, and transgender group. Now, listen, I've got gay friends. I have no problem. But we are building a team here, a team of people that's got to fight together, do things together. I mean, they had a party, cut a cake, all these things. And to me, again, we're going to need everybody, men, women, everybody of every association, because we're a volunteer force. But we want people that love this country that'll fight together when things get tough. And I would just hope that you would spread that around in the Navy once you get in of, hey, let's build team. Don't build groups, individual groups around. What's your thoughts on that?
Senator, and I enjoyed our meeting the other day, so thank you again for your time. Sir, I'll say for the last 38 years, I've been focused on building teams that can fight and win our nation's wars. I'm focused on war fighting, war fighters, and winning, and that's what our military needs to be focused on. And if confirmed, that is the focus I will bring to our Navy every day.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you're the head coach now. I mean, there's nobody to look to after you now. You're the person that's going to get the credit and the blame. And I know you can do the job. I'm looking forward to it. But I would just, the experiences I've had over the years, if we ever start trying to divide into groups within a team atmosphere, which our military is a team, then we're going to have huge problems down the way. And we have problems in our country right now, and I would hope that we don't continue to divide. The other thing I want to talk to you about is workforce. We have shipbuilding in our state in Alabama. We're having a tough time finding people to work in this country in terms of the generations coming up. We don't have a lot of plumbers, electricians, welders, and why is that? And I've got two boys that are 28 and 29. I ask them why. I says, Dad, most of them are getting in big tech. They're getting in areas that probably a little bit easier, but also you're going to make a little bit more money, and it's not as hard. I mean, most of them grew up with that computer in front of them. I have a hard time turning one on because I didn't grow up with one, but they I get my information from kids that also that I coached over the years, but we need a force. I was visiting in Taiwan not too long ago with the chip manufacturer, the CEO, and he's disappointed because in our country, they're building in Phoenix, I think they're building a chip factory, and they're having to train welders and plumbers and electricians in Taiwan to send over here to build this facility. I just can't imagine what we're going to have in our shipyards. And in World War II, we had 30 shipyards. Now we're 4, 5, or 6. How many have you been to a lot of our shipyards across the country?
Yes, I've had an opportunity to visit a lot of our private and our public shipyards, and I would say, again, we really do need this call to service to pull out all the levers so we can bring our young people into seeing shipbuilding, ship fitting, pipe fitting, plumbers, as a really critical trade that we need to build the defense of our nation.
Yeah, do you get that sense from the CEOs, people you talk to at these yards, that we are struggling, with workforce, obviously, and some of the places I go to, they're going out recruiting on their own. They're going to shopping centers. They're going to some of the fast food joints. One of the shipbuilders that we have in Alabama brags about it, that they, from a fast food joint, they went in and recruited some people, and their best welder was working at a fast food joint 5 years ago. Their very best, and they brag about that. So we're going to need a lot of help from you, in our shipyards of promoting recruitment, not just of military personnel, but also of helping, some of these shipyards being able to build and complete the projects, that they were involved in. So again, congratulations. Look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Let me recognize Senator Shaheen, and also I will go vote, and she will preside. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, congratulations on your nomination. We look forward to confirming you and have you take office very soon. One of the concerns that we're hearing in Washington right now is that there is the potential for a government shutdown and for us to fail to pass a continuing resolution to keep the government open. I know that that has special significance for the Navy because of the way Congress funds shipbuilding efforts. So can you talk about what the consequences of a government shutdown might be on the Navy?
Senator Sheen, thank you, and thanks for your time the other day. Our number one ask is an on-time budget. We design our budget with the expectation that we'll be able to execute that program that we've balanced. If we have, just looking particularly at ships, right now we have 9 ships in the budget, and if we were under a continuing resolution, we would not be able to start work on 4 of those ships, including 1 Columbia, a Virginia, a frigate, and a submarine tender. Beyond that, there are additional impacts on readiness, training, ability to move people. Impacts would be very significant.
And how long would that delay the completion of those ships that would be affected?
I think it would really have to depend on exactly when we were able to get a budget and get them started. So it would really delay incredibly long time. If it was a year, if it was 6 months, you know, you really have to multiply probably 2 times whatever the delay was to get everything back in order. But I can get back to you on, take for the record an exact number.
Thank you, I appreciate that. What do you think our adversaries are going to do with the information that we can't pass a budget? How will China, for example, react?
Well, our adversaries look for every opportunity to undermine the credibility of our military. And again, they would continue to look for opportunities to do that and spread disinformation around the world.
Thank you. I agree. I think it's the absolute worst message we could send at a time like this. We talked a little bit about the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard when you were in my office. We're very proud to have that shipyard in the seacoast of New Hampshire and Maine. It's the oldest continuously operating shipyard in the country. As we discussed, I am concerned that there seem to be rumors proposing a split between the current command structure at Portsmouth so that one officer would command the installation and one would command the submarine maintenance mission. Do you have any reaction to that? Do you know if the Navy is planning that? Is that something that is in the pipeline that we should be concerned about and get more information about?
Senator Shaheen, as the Vice Chief of Naval Operations, I've been very focused on the maintenance and on all of our 4 public shipyards, including this one. So what I'm looking at when we talk about the span of command and control of our shipyard commander, I want the shipyard commander to be focused on getting our ships in and out of maintenance on time. And I would like the commander to be less focused on some of the other things that are associated with that, which is, you know, housing up in Cutler, Maine, or some of the other broader area responsibilities that we put on that person. So again, I don't think you need to be concerned. We'd be happy to brief you on that. But again, I think this is going to be a net positive as we improve the ability of our shipyard commander to just focus on what they're getting paid to do, which is maintain our ships.
Well, I appreciate the importance of focusing on maintaining our ships. I do think this is a very small geographically shipyard. It doesn't have a huge number of regular Navy members assigned to that yard, and I hope you will engage with both the commander and other top officials in the shipyard on their view of what that might mean and the challenges that that might present for the shipyard before a decision is made.
Yes, Senator, you have my commitment to do that.
Thank you very much. Just because I'm almost out of time, I just want to point out that last month, 5 Granite Staters graduated from the inaugural Machinist Pipeline Program, which is designed to train participants for skilled manufacturing jobs, and it's funded through the Navy and DoD submarine industrial base efforts. I wanted to applaud that effort and hope that we will look at the lessons learned and be able to expand on that. But congratulations on that initiative.
Thank you.